one of the first OG boss unit to receive a mass form. Not that it's bad. I'm a little bit surprised that this OG form received a mass, but still, it is already being spoiled by the anime anyway, so at this moment I'm not surprised. But is this mass form the support that Magnolia desperately needs, or is it just Copium? This video is sponsored by Phoenix Pharos cards. If you need supplies of singles or splits for Cardfight Vanguard, especially the ones in the video, do check out Phoenix Pharos cards today, and as a bonus, use the promo code MetaNerd to get an amazing 5% discount. And with that being said, let's get on with the video. Greetings YouTube, welcome back to the MetaNerd channel. I am Marcus, bringing you another video for Cardfight Vanguard Willdress. In this video, we'll be going through the mass form of Magnolia, which does bring something new to the table for Magnolia, but at the same time, it's kind of limited on what you can run inside a Magnolia deck if you choose to play the mass form, because this mass unit does require you to play a certain way, only then he's able to be very good. But still, I think it's a worthy upgrade to consider taking, because you know, Magnolia isn't really doing too good. He's, I think, the least performing deck at this point, but it is still viable, but it's just not really good. So without further ado, let's take a look at what the mass form actually brings to the table. First and foremost is the Sylvan Horn Beast King of Calamity Magnolia Masques. So as usual, the restriction of riding from a grade 3 Magnolia. Second skill, continuous Vanguard Circle. During your turn, all of your Rearguards on Vanguard Circle with a Dragon Tree marker can attack from the back row and gets 10k power. Second skill, active Vanguard Circle once per turn. Cost, remove a card with Magnolia and its different card name from this unit from hand, soul, or drop, and this unit gets auto Vanguard Circle. When your Rearguard attacks a Vanguard from the back row, choose one of your opponent's Rearguard and retire it until the end of turn. So Magnolia being Magnolia, he's basically allowing your Rearguards to attack from the back row, but instead of just letting the Rearguard to attack from the back row, only the Rearguards in the back row that has a Dragon Tree marker is able to attack from the back row, which is kind of bad, I would say. But still, since it is a Dragon Tree marker and Magnolia Masque actually provides a 10k power to whatever Rearguard is on the Dragon Tree marker, it's a total of 15k power for that one attack. So with an 8k grade 1, it would mean that that unit will be hitting for 23k, which is a 15k shield. It is very good, provided of course if you are able to generate enough Dragon Tree marker, that is. So by you going into the mass form, you actually are limited in terms of how many times you can attack, since you are basically limited to how many Dragon Tree marker you're generating. You will only need 3 Dragon Tree marker in the back row for you to attack for a total of 6 times. So if we are to compare Magnolia Elder and Magnolia Masque, both of these actually do function the same way, with the exception of Magnolia being free. Whatever Rearguards you call onto the field, you basically are able to attack from the back row regardless of if there are Dragon Tree marker, but they will only be able to get a 5k power as well as a 5k shield, which is slightly more defensive than Magnolia Masque. You will not be able to intercept with your back row with Magnolia Masque, but you do gain a 5k more power as compared to Magnolia Elder. So it's more of if you wanted to go more defensive route or more offensive route. But I think Magnolia Elder as well as Magnolia Masque are two very different decks. They do play the same way. It basically comes down to which route you want to take with your Magnolia. It's either you want to go for a more offensive one or you want to go for a more defensive one. Now, although Magnolia Masque technically does not cost anything to activate skill, you will need to have at least 1 counterblast to basically have a back row Rearguard to attack from the back row. So for every Dragon Tree marker you generate, each of those Dragon Tree marker does cost 1 counterblast from your grade 1 as well as grade 2 Dragon Tree unit. So in the end, you will need 3 counterblasts to have like a full attacking turn, which might not be the best, but still, if you manage to generate 3 Dragon Tree marker, yeah, congrats to you. They are going to be really disgusting. But of course, if you do that, it means that you will not have a lot of utility in terms of your other card skills that uses counterblast. I mean, there is one nuke that uses 1 counterblast, so it's basically up to you on which unit you prioritize in terms of paying that 1 counterblast. The main big thing about Magnolia Masque is the ability to board control. If your Rearguard in the back row is attacking the Vanguard, you are able to snipe something on the board, which I think is really good. At the maximum, you are able to retire 3 rearguards, which up until this point Magnolia is unable to do. This does basically provides Magnolia with a board control options, which could prove fatal to the opponent if Magnolia's offensive turn is able to wither down the opponent's hand. So as an overall, Magnolia Masque I think is a worthy upgrade, and it's not really like a weaker version of Elder. I would say this is much more powerful, but the thing that basically differentiates between Elder as well as Magnolia Masque is the flexibility in terms of your deck build. For Magnolia Elder, you can run whatever because Magnolia Elder does not really restrict you in terms of deck building. But for Magnolia Masque, you basically need to run the OG Magnolia, 4 copies of Magnolia Masque, the Mass Order, as well as your grade 2 as well as grade 1 Dragon Tree. He's not really that flexible because you need to run all those stuff for you to even do your work, so it's a more restrictive build, I would say. But still, it is a really good card, don't get me wrong. If you are able to get around that and successfully build a Magnolia Masque, I am sure this deck is super good. But at the moment, it is a little bit on the meh side, I would say. Now, with Magnolia Masque out of the way, let's take a look at some of the support cards that was introduced for Magnolia Masque. First off is the Double R, Force Glow Dragon. Although when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, other than during the battle phase, if your Vanguard is Sylvan Beast King of Calamity Magnolia Masque, cost counterblast 1, choose grade 3 or less card from your drop up to the same number of Dragon Tree markers on your rearguard circle, call them to rearguard circle. Second skill, Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks, choose one of your Vanguard with Magnolia in its card name, and it gets 5k power until the end of turn. So Magnolia at this point is just basically Grand Blue, but great nature, I would say. You have a lot of stuff that basically recall something from the drop, so you are not really that vulnerable to the opponent's board controlling your board, since you have a lot of stuff that basically superior calls from the drop zone, including this card. This card is kind of in a weird situation because you'll need to have like Dragon Tree marker on the field for you to even gain something from this skill. So like I said before, you will need to spend 1 counterblast for each Dragon Tree marker generated, and this unit costs 1 counterblast. So it's a weird situation where you need to spend more resources to get payback for every resource spent, which is technically not really that great, since most of the time you are basically limited in terms of your resources, which is something that is going to hinder Magnolia Masque deck at this point. And those 2 units cost 1 counterblast. I know I'm repeating myself, but I want you to understand, if you choose to play Dragon Tree marker, you should expect this kind of counterplay, I would say. The small power boost of 5k provided to Magnolia Vanguard is nice. In a Magnolia deck, the Vanguard is always going to be the smallest attack, but of course with the personal right being back into Magnolia as well as this unit giving the 5k, I would say it is a very good bonus. It's not going to be game breaking, but you are of course not expecting your Vanguards to be like the most threatening unit inside a Magnolia deck. It's usually your rearguards that is doing most of the job. This unit giving a 5k to Magnolia whenever he attacks, I think is a really nice bonus, I would say. Next up, we have Sylvan Beast Lepcor, a rabbit with 4 ears. Auto drop zone. When your Sylvan Beast King of Calamity Magnolia Masque is placed on Vanguard circle, you may call this card to rearguard circle. If you call it, this unit gets 5k power until the end of turn. This is a very nice way to build your board whenever you go into your Magnolia Masque, since this unit is free and it basically just doesn't really cost anything to be called from the drop zone and is a 13k attacker, and you don't really need to call it on top of a Dragon Tree marker. This unit I think is a very good plus engine, as well as just free rearguards through and through. This card can be a 28k attacker on Dragon Tree marker, because since of course you gain an extra 10k as well as a 5k from the Magnolia Masque as well as Dragon Tree skill. This card is pretty much a straightforward card. It's not the most game breaking, but it is like a very free engine to run whenever you personal write or just rewrite into Magnolia Masque. This card does not restrict you in any way. The only restriction that this card has is only when Magnolia Masque is on place onto the Vanguard circle. This is just really good. I would recommend you to consider running a few of these, but of course I understand Magnolia Masque currently has a deck space issue, so might not be the main priority, but of course if you are able to squeeze in like 1 or 2, it's enough. The last of the support card that Magnolia actually received is Rambling Loyalty. Auto rearguard circle. At the end of your turn, if this unit is on a rearguard circle with a Dragon Tree marker, retire this unit, choose a grade 3 or greater unit card from your drop and put it into your hand. Very simple skill. It's basically here to recycle your personal right, getting a Magnolia Masque back, or maybe Magnolia Elder if you choose to play Magnolia Elder in this deck, which I highly doubt you will want to do so because it's just very out of place, I would say. If you are able to Superior Call this card every single turn, you are basically able to recycle something from the drop zone, which is definitely going to be nice. Although you don't necessarily have to recycle your Personal Right because Inlet Pulse is a thing. You are able to just get free draws after that, but of course you are retiring he himself, so not really the best skill, but it is something to think about. Once again, similar to the Rabbit previously, this card should only be considered to run if you of course have space. If you of course have space to put this card in after all of your staplers are inside the deck. Consider this very carefully before you even finalize your deck list. Very nice card, but of course it still needs a little bit of testing to understand if this card were to be in the deck or not. My vote is no. So let's talk a little bit about some of the instant staplers that Magnolia Masque wants to have in the deck. That of course is going to be a stapler if you do decide to play the Magnolia Masque. The first two cards are of course going to be the Grade 1 and Grade 2 Dragon Tree, because they are your only way to generate a Dragon Tree marker, which this deck desperately needs. They do provide some benefits in terms of getting the mass order as well as order recycler. Stoicheia has a lot of order cards that works really well inside this deck, be it the Wild Intelligence or Spiritual Body Condensation to Superior Call stuff from the drop zone, to Superior Call your units from a drop zone, which is going to be nice. The only problem here is that you are using a lot of resources from my standpoint, because once again, for each Dragon Tree marker you do cost 1 Counterblast, and your order recycle skill isn't exactly free either. And not to mention, the order skills do cost resources as well, so it's really a headache in terms of how to ban your resources really well. Luckily for Magnolia do have stuff that basically gives some resources back. For example, these two cards. I do see a lot of want to buy Alpine skill and want to sell as well. Alpine is your attacker, which will go up to 20k if I'm not mistaken, or 30k if you have a full board of Grade 2s or greater, including himself. The best thing about Alpine is he is able to countercharge as well as soul charge, which this deck desperately needs at this point. The only problem is that he goes away after one use, which is technically not really that great. The next Grade 1 is not technically a resource searcher, but he's able to basically search out Magnolia, be it the Magnolia Masque or the OG Magnolia, which is really good in terms of getting Personal Right as well as your discard fodder for Magnolia Masque to activate board control skill. However, the main selling point of this card is that he's able to give the Personal Right power to the back row, which is a huge deal inside a Magnolia deck. And luckily, it doesn't really cost any resources. So these four, I think, are the main staplers that should be in the deck. There are still quite a bit of open spaces, but it's not a lot, because you will need to run the mass order as well as Magnolia Masque, as well as the new Grade 2 that we talked about earlier, Force Glow Dragon. So there's not a lot of spot left for other things, but I think these four are going to be the main staplers to be inside Magnolia Masque deck. Do consider very carefully in terms of deck building. And that is all for this video. Do let me know down in the comment section of what do you think of Magnolia Masque. Is he really a good upgrade from Magnolia Elder, or is he just copium? My money is on the latter, but of course I have been proven wrong before, so I'm keeping my hopes up for Magnolia. Do like and subscribe if you like this video, and of course during the bell notification icon so that you don't miss a video I upload. With that being said, I'll see you all on the field.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.